Okay, testing. I see the audio wave, right? So you guys can listen to me. So welcome back to the third video of our chapter 9 teaching series, okay, for this special vacation, right? Now, in this video, we are going to move on to the counterpart of factors affecting demand, which would be the factors affecting supply. And hopefully this video will be much shorter than the video in demand because the factors affecting supplies are much easier than those of demand. So let's get started. Let's go to page 127 of your textbook, right? Now you will see the first factor, which I think most of the questions would be based on, would be the cost of production. Okay, basically, okay, 我哋唔好寫咁多啦。Higher the cost, then lower the supply，係咪？成本越貴，梗係 supply 越少啦。嗱，this is actually a recall of chapter 6 and chapter 7, especially chapter 7. Do you remember? Okay, we talk about in chapter 7, right? When variable cost increases, we talk about the profit max quantity would decrease, right? 記唔記得啊？嗱，basically this is a reflection of it, okay? Reflection of it, okay? 好嘛？基本上係同一樣嘢嚟嘅啫。Okay, when production cost increases, supply would decrease. 嗰陣時我哋未講啊，係咪？嗰陣時未用 supply 呢啲字，因為嗰陣時未學。Now we know what is supply, right? Okay, so basically refer to chapter 7 for the mathematical proof of how cost increase would lead to a decrease in supply. Okay, 唔講啦。Number 2, we call it state of technology. Basically, the better the technology, okay? Basically, when the technology level increases, then the supply will increase. Now, typical example, using of machine, using of robots, 係咪？用機器，用機器啊，用一啲機械人啊 ，basically your productivity will increase, right? If you remember back in your IH in Form 2，好啦，應該啦，要有一半人都係俾我教過㗎，係咪啊？嗱 ，remember Industrial Revolution, right？點解英國突然之間產量咁勁啊？Because of the invention of machine。係咪嗰陣時用 machine 啦 ？So the state of technology increase, meaning the supply of textile， 記唔記得初頭係 textile in Britain, right? It largely increased because of better technology, right? 係咪啊？嗱，唔講啦，呢個應該好容易明白嘅，好嘛？好。Now we need to talk about another pair of brothers and sisters in supply, right? They are called competitive supply and joint supply. Now, but their meaning is vastly different from substitute and complement, although the idea is very similar, right? First, let's talk about what is competitive supply. Is that when two goods require similar input to produce, we call them competitive supply. Very typical example would be land and building. 本書都用 land and building 啊，呢個係最典型㗎啦，係嘛？ You will see, right? For example, the same piece of land either used for recreational purpose， 可能起個球場啦 ，or use as agricultural activities， 可能攞嚟耕田又得，攞嚟起球場又得，咁要揀啦，地又得咁多啫。And then building, you either build a residential building or commercial building， 同一笪地起住宅啊，定係起嗰啲商廈啦。OK， 好嘛 ？So they are fighting for the same factor input， 係咪啊？同樣啦，係咪啊？嗱 ，let's see, right? So you see, land and building usually will be the example. Another example, let's say, okay, let's say wooden chair and wooden table， 兩個都係用木做 ，OK？ 用木做咗凳 係咪 ？If you make more chair, then unfortunately you run out of wood to make table. Now for those of you who play those survival video games，而家好興咧，嗰啲要係嘛 ？You need to gather resources and make things to survive, right? I think you will understand very clearly what is competitive supply, right? 係咪？用咗啲資源做第一樣嘢 ，so another one。the availability of another resources would be reduced 係咪啊？你做唔到第二樣嘢咯，係咪啊？You use you use the resources to make one thing, another thing would be reduced because you don't have enough resources anymore, right？係嘛？ We call this competitive supply. 嗱，the same idea 都係嗰句啦。本書咧 ，the textbook use price 係咪啊？ It says it use price. Again, this is a very dangerous proposition, right? Let's write down the logic. By now, you should know. 而家你應該識㗎啦。Now, when the price of A increases by the law of supply, the quantity supplied of A would increase. If A and B belongs to something we call competitive supply, then the supply of B would decrease because they are competitive. 重點又係唔係 price 啦，重點係 quantity supplied of A， 又係佢多同少嘅分別啦。OK， sorry 有少少窒機啊。I just realized from last video, right? In fact, using Zoom to do recording, the frame per second is a little bit undesirable, but it shouldn't affect too much, right? 我哋唔好理啦，好嘛？所以記住啦 ，this is the main point. QS of A increase. If they belong to competitive supply, then supply of B would decrease like this, right? Flowers and vegetable, the land, using the same piece of land to either grow flowers or vegetables. Now, growing more flowers, then the supply of vegetables would decrease. 都係嗰句，唔好理啲 price 同 quantity 住，我哋未去到。I will talk about that in the next video. OK， 好嘛？下條片先至講，好唔好啊？唔講咁多住啦，好嘛 ？Now, OK, the sister of competitive supply would be joint supply. 今次啦係倒轉啊，我哋所謂聯合供應啊，好嘛 ？When one good is a byproduct， 原來我哋係講緊啲 byproduct 嗰啲叫副產品啊。OK， then they will belong to the joint supply. For example, chicken legs and chicken wing 係咪啊？咁大家知道。雞髀係點嚟㗎？你劏隻雞咯。When you kill the chicken, you don't just get the legs, you also get the wings， 係咪啊 ？Then another example, beef and leather。你劏隻牛嘅時候，你唔淨止要佢啲牛肉，你以為佢啲皮㗎嘛？係咪啊 ？OK, gasoline and diesel 係咪啊？甚至 when you make gasoline, you also get diesel, etc. 總之你記住啦，你劏咗佢，兩樣都一齊出現嘅。OK， 好嘛 ？So this will be the example。OK， 係嘛？嗱呢個應該唔難明嘅，相比起 demand 真係易明好多啊，係咪啊 ？Now 嗱 ，I know what you think 嘅，阿 Sir 你好煩啊，我知你想寫咩？好嗱，你知嘅同我一齊寫好唔好啊？When price of A increases because of the law of supply, we know quantity supplied of A would increase. Now, if they belong to joint supply, then the supply of B would also increase. The main point is not price of A, but the quantity supplied of A. Okay, this is the logic of joint supply。OK， 嗱你遲啲就會明點解 price 係好危險㗎。In the next video, when we talk about change in demand and change in supply, you will understand why price is a very dangerous proposition. OK， 好嗎？嗱 ，so graphically， 嗱呢個咧我哋之前條片都講咗啦，我都唔特別講啦，好嗎？Now the main point is when quantity increases, you will see supply would increase. 重點係 quantity 上升，好唔好 ？Okay, so joint supply and competitive supply. 好啦 ，now you see they also talk about government policy. 其實 demand 都會㗎。It also depends on government policy, right? I think this one will be self-explanatory. For example, impose sales tax, then the production cost would increase, right? 係咪 ？For a purpose, production cost would increase, right? 好啦，跟住又係啦，嗱呢兩個廢嘅係嘛 ？Number of producer 唔好玩啦，係嘛？越多人啊 ，number increases, then the supply will increase， 多咗人咪多咗人供應咯。唔講啦，係嘛 ？Other factors 黐線 other factors 啊，係嘛 ？For example, typhoon， 記唔記得啊？我第一年嚟嘅時候啊 ，the first year in St. Joseph's College, right? I remember there was a day that is super terrifying. It's the day of Makut。OK， 山竹啊，係咪？山竹打到嚟啦 ，so basically Makut 係咪？山竹啊，將所有啲田地啊 ，basically all farmlands in Hong Kong were destroyed. During those 2 weeks, vegetables, the price was super expensive because, let's say a typhoon, then the supply of vegetables would decrease. OK， 好唔好啊？嗱，我哋之前啦，山竹試過啦。OK， 好嘛？嗱，呢個唔講啦。好啦，最後啦。Expectation of future price. 好啦 ，the producer if they expect future price to increase, then 係嘛 ？They will sell later， 梗係遲啲先賣啦，係嘛 ？For higher profit， 係嘛 ？For higher profit. Then what happened is that the present supply or the supply now would decrease， 係咪？佢知道第時啲嘢貴咗，係咪 ？If the price increase in the future, they expect to increase in the future, then of course they will hold some stock and sell it later. OK， 又係啦，香港有咩例子啊 ？Property market 係咪啊？咪就係咁咯，起好晒唔賣啊啲樓。The building, the flats are already built, but the developer do not sell them. 係特登唔賣啊？點解 ？Because they expect the property price to go up in the future. Therefore, they don't sell it now, sell it later. 第時價貴先賣。OK， 好嘛？嗱，要 see this is what's going on. Of course, right? The government once proposed to have a so-called vacancy tax， 唔俾佢哋咁做啊！喂，佢話喂，你啲樓喺度擺喺個倉度唔賣出嚟，咁啲人冇樓住喎，係嘛？They say if you put it vacant there, we're going to put a taxation on you, impose a taxation on you， 係嘛？空置稅就係咁啦。Of course, let's leave it for later. Now I think you understand expected 呢個好易明啫，係咪啊？你 expect 第時貴，梗係第時先賣啦，係咪？To earn more profit, something like that. OK， 好嘛 ？So these are the factors. Now hopefully you agree with me that supply is much easier to understand than demand. 起碼我哋冇 derived demand 嘅問題啊 ，no output-input relationship, right？ 係咪啊？好啦 ，Now boys, so let's wrap up this video with page 113. 131, not 113. OK， 131版啦。OK， now let's go to this exercise. I suggest let's pause the video for 1 minute and then you can try to do it on your own. Here you go. Okay, I expect you have paused the video and finished the exercise before continuing, right? So let's look at the answer together. Okay, now we need to determine how the supply of uncontaminated seafood， 我哋而家講明係一啲乾淨嘅海鮮啊。OK， 好唔好啊？ We'll change in the following situation. We say part of the sea is polluted by oil spill. 好啦，而家有 oil spill 啦。So unfortunately, the area for producing uncontaminated seafood would decrease. Now, therefore, you will see, right? Supply would decrease. Okay, supply would decrease because basically no production. 係嘛 ？The possibility of production of uncontaminated seafood would decrease. 係嘛？你少咗乾淨嘅海啊嘛。OK，fishermen expect seafood prices to rise in the future。OK，係嘛？Because they expect price in the future to increase, therefore they would sell later for higher profit. Therefore, the present supply of uncontaminated seafood would decrease. 係嘛？第時先賣貴啲啊嘛，係咪？Of course, in reality, I don't know whether it works or not because you know seafood, right? They will get rotten very quickly，係咪？會變壞，所以我唔知呢件事會唔會啊。But using DSE logic, it should go like this, right? Technology used to protect the marine environment improves, right? 係嘛 ？Then supply increase，係咪容易咗啊 ？It is easier to make uncontaminated seafood, right? 好啦 ，finally。Eating seafood become more popular。嗱呢個咧你未做到住㗎 ，because we have not talked about changing demand and changing supply. But for our purpose，記住啦 ，becomes more popular. What does that mean? It means that the demand for seafood would increase。好啦 ，when demand increase。Price of seafood would increase。嗱，呢個我哋未學嘅，所以唔使擔心。OK，we will talk about that in next video. But for now, all you need to look at is this one. Price of seafood increase. When price increases, 呢個係價格嘅改變。So what does that mean? It means that QS would increase by the law of supply. But it is asking how the supply would change. 而家係 QS 變 actually supply remains unchanged 係 QS 變啊 because this is a change in price only. Other factors are held constant for producer. Okay, 好唔好啊 ？So supply actually remains unchanged. OK， 嗱，所以呢個啦，深少少啦，呢 part 呢個。OK，you need to revise this one. So very quickly, we have gone through the factors, right? I think the most important factors you need to remember would be first, competitive supply and joint supply. Then, you need to remember cost of production. This one refer to chapter 7 when we talk about the mathematical proof for that. Okay, Homa. So this will be the end of this video. For the next video, and probably will be the last video, we will talk about the effect of change in supply and the effect of change in demand. Okay, and then we talk about when they add together, what will be the effect. Okay, so see you again in the next video. Bye bye.